Shalom, shalom. Alright, first of all, I'd like to start by giving all praises to Yahweh, Ba'asham Yahweh Shai, Ba'asham Rakar Kodash, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and salutations to the Arkim out there doing this work in sincerity and in truth. This is about pushing this truth, man, and to do so, we go into the articles regarding prophecy. Now, I found this particular article on Drudge Report, which I'm about to go into. All right, this is Yahoo News. It says U.S. Air Force to begin fighter-mounted laser testing this summer. Okay, so this is going into the advancements in laser technology being attached to the F-15s by summer 2019, which is not far away. All right, so we look forward to the World War III spoken of in the scriptures, and this is just an article which is a testament to how advanced this World War III is going to be in comparison to World War I and World War II. All right, so with that, I'm going to read just a little bit of this article, then I'm going to go into the scriptures. So it says, Washington, the U.S. Air Force will this summer begin testing a laser that will be mounted on an F-15 warplane, an official said Monday. The Pentagon last year awarded a $26 million contract to Lockheed Martin for a laser program called SHIELD, which stands for Self-Protect High Energy Laser Demonstrator. The idea is to put a laser system on an aircraft with an output of about 50 kilowatts to test their ability to zap drones or cruise missiles. All right, so that's all I'm going to read on that article, man. So it's showing you the advancements of U.S. Air Force. So the first scripture I wanted to go into is Psalms 17 and 13. It says, "Arise, O Lord, disappoint him, cast him down, deliver my soul." The hymn's talking about the so-called white man, which is the wicked of the Bible. All right, the descendants of Esau, the Edomites. All right, so Esau's power structure. It says, "Deliver my soul from the wicked," all right, which is the so-called white man, which is thy sword. So these Edomites, they're the Heavenly Father's sword. All right, and from here, I'd like to go to, Genesis 27 and 40. All right, now this chapter talks about Jacob and Esau, Jacob getting the blessing and Esau missing out on the blessing and receiving somewhat of what he would consider his blessing, which is his time to rule. And really, it's a curse unto him. Now we're going to read verse 40. Verse 39, it says, "And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth and the dew of heaven from above." So the so-called white man for a period of time was, coasting the middle class, and he had the ability to travel anywhere through the way of the skies, man. All right, through the way of the heavens. He could fly any country and go on holiday, all right? 3-4 holidays a year and so forth. So he had the dew of heaven from above. And it also goes into say, "And by the sword shalt thou live." Now the modern day sword is the gun, all right, or synonymous with killing instruments. "And shalt serve thy brother, and it shall come to pass when thou shalt have dominion, thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck." All right, and the so-called white man right now has dominion. So from here, I'd like to go to Revelations the ninth chapter, and this is going to go into World War One. Okay, so let's go into this chapter. It says, starting from Revelation 9:1, it says, "And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit." So that pit is talking about Europe, okay? "And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power." Now, what those locusts were talking about is dog fighters, because in World War One, the aerial defense was actually, the early aerial defense was those dogfighter planes, okay? And it says, "And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads." So that's how we know it's not talking about an actual locust, because locusts eat grass and so forth. It went on to say, "should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads." So those planes, all right, and the military, they was only going to be able to do damage to the men which was not exempt, the men which weren't exempt from being, killed. All right, so there were certain men which were reserved from World War One to survive by any means necessary through the Spirit. Those men that were Israelites in that World War One, the Lord had them saved, because the men of the Lord, which now prophesy, all right, the Lord's chosen, the elect or the remnant, were going to come from their loins, and that's why they were not to be hurt. They had that seal, all right, that mark of exemption from being killed in World War One. So I'm going to continue on. It says, "And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months." And that 5 months represents 5 years. "And their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man." All right, because that's that scorpion, that goes into the what do you call it? It goes into the machine guns. All right, because before there were machine guns, there was actually pilots who would carry a shotgun and shoot at other opposition or threat. But then they furthered their technology into those machine guns. Now, it said, I'll read it again. It says, "And their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man. And in those days shall a man seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them." Because you had a lot of men who, during World War One, had a lot of physical defects. There was guys that were missing limbs, had their faces torn off, and so forth, but they would live, okay, and they would live a very painful or suffer a very terrible life, and they weren't able to die. All right, the Lord would actually reserve them to live through their through their sufferings. All right, their conditions. Verse 7, it says, "And the shape of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle." So John the Revelator, he was describing these dog fighters as locusts, because he had never seen, he didn't know what a dogfighter was. All right. He had never seen such planes before. So he gave his best analogy, which were like locusts, were like unto horses prepared unto battle. So it was their formation, and on their heads were, as it were, crowns like gold. And that's going into the German military. Depending on their ranks, they would have silver or gold helmets, and their faces were as the faces of men, and they had hair as the hair of women. So why would it say the faces of men but the hair of women? The reason is because if you do a Google search and you look up the during World War I, the German army, the helmets that they had were gold, but then the top of the helmet was kind of fashioned as if it had hair which would come down. Okay, it had whatever it was sticking out of the top of the helmet, and it would reach down to drape down from the top of the helmet down to the bottom of the helmet. All right, so you just have to Google those images to see what the scripture is talking about. So that's what it meant when it said the hair of women. And their teeth were as the teeth of lions, and that's talking about those machine guns, because you had pilots at the front flying the plane. All right, and they modified from a shotgun to an actual machine gun, and they had a pilot at the back of the plane, all right, in the cockpit to the rear, with that machine gun attached. And that's what it means by the teeth of lions. And they had breastplates as it were breastplates of iron. All right, because these locusts were made of metal, and the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots, of many horses running to battle, because they were very loud. All right, now they've furthered their technology. The planes don't have such a loud sound. All right, they managed to muffle the sound out or do whatever they did to bring the noise down. But going back to the primitive aerial defense technology, it was very loud. Just as now you have diesel cars, they don't make as much noise as when diesel was first brought out. Those cars were loud, man. No one wanted to really buy them because it wasn't popular, because it was just so loud. But now the technology is furthered, they're in high demand. Okay, and it's the same thing. I'll go on to verse 10. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. All right. Verse 11. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, which Abaddon means destroyer. But in the Greek tongue have his name Apollyon, which that actual king over them was Kaiser Wilhelm. Okay, he was that king that the scripture is talking about. It says, but in the Greek tongue have his name Apollyon. All right, so that's the Greek way of saying destroyer, and in the Hebrew it would be Abaddon. All right, same thing. Verse 12, one woe is past, that's World War I, and behold, there come 2 woes more hereafter. All right, so World War II, you already know, has happened. All right, you just have to know history, and World War III is imminent. I'm going to read verse 14 and 15. It says, saying to the 6th angel, which had the trumpet, loose the 4 angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. And the 4 angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year, for to slay the 3rd part of men. And the 3rd part of men represents Esau, okay, the so-called white man, the Edomites, because You have different classifications of men. You have the men, the sons of God, which are the Israelites. Then you have the sons of men, which are the other nations. And in particular, you have the sons of the wicked, which is the so-called white man. All right, he's the third part of men. So from here, just to briefly summarize, the so-called white man, these Edomites, they're furthering their technology for the third woe, all right, which is World War III. And they've come a long way from World War I, from them dogfighters. And they're perfecting their blessing, which is the blessing of the sword, all right, and that dew of heaven that we read in Genesis 27 and 39. Okay, so all this is evidence of the prophecies of World War III being fulfilled, and we're seeing that through way of this article. Now, before I conclude this article, we read about men which were marked not to be hurt by World War I, all right, that would survive. So just as an extra, I'm going to go into an article which is blackpresence.co.uk, the black presence in Britain. It says black soldiers in World War I. Now, there's quite a bit on this article, but I'm going to skim through it as quick as possible for lack of time. It says it is often throughout the World War I it is often thought that World War I was a European war, fought exclusively by Europeans. Nothing could be further from the truth. Despite this, the mainstream media makes little effort to acknowledge the contributions of non-Europeans in World War I. There were lots of black and Asian soldiers in World War I. All right, how black soldiers became involved in World War I. All right, now you see this caption here shows you those men. Okay, and you would have had so-called black, right, so-called Negroid Israelites that would have been involved in World War I. But you also had, Jakes which were scattered among those Asians, because Israel was our people was conquered and scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. So our people were have been in, the transatlantic slave trade, and our people were captive around the whole world. All right, so you would have had people who would have been of a lighter complexion, or even would have looked like these other nations because of, generation to generation, our people would breed the other nations' women, and pretty much the children of those women would look like their mothers, and through generation to generation, our sons and daughters would exactly look. You wouldn't be able to tell that they were Israelite, but if they come from an Israelite father, all right, then their lineage would trace back to it. Their lineage, their nationality would be that they're Israelites. All right, so you would have had not been able to always tell. You would have had so-called white Israelites, so-called Asian Israelites, and so forth. But to continue on, it says before World War I began, Britain and France had colonies in the Caribbean, Africa and Asia, as well as many other places around the world. So yeah, they conquered many places. Germany also had colonies in Africa. Turkey was involved in World War I, and the Turkish troops contained an African and a Muslim contingent. All right, now going on to the British Caribbean. After centuries of slavery, people in the British Caribbean were relishing their freedom, though many took pride in their loyalty to the mother country. Yeah, because they had been conquered, all right? And, they were taught that, Britain and America, the floors were paved with gold and so forth. And if, to serve would be a great honor. All right. To continue on, it says, when World War I began, West Indians donated large sums of money to aid the war effort. They also volunteered, because they was raised that way by their parents. Their parents raised them to respect Britain, till they come here and find out what it was really like to be treated ill-treated by the public, and also, so-called fellow people that they fighted alongside. They also volunteered to fight for Britain, joining the British and West India Regiment. And there's another picture for you, brothers, man. By the end of World War One, over 15,500 West Indians had joined the BWIR and had experienced military service in England, Italy, Egypt, India, France, Belgium, Palestine, Mesopotamia, Iraq, and in East Africa. You're telling me those Jakes never left seed in those lands? Of course they did. Africans in the French army, it goes on to say, like Britain, France was a major colonial power. France gathered troops from all over Francophone Africa. French colonies in Africa. France also had colonies in Southeast Asia. Some of the most decorated African soldiers serving the French army were Tirailleurs Senegalese. All right, Jakes. And there's another caption for the French regiment. All right, the Senegalese. The German troops nicknamed Tirailleurs Senegalese Black Devils. All right. They earned this nickname when fighting like demons. They had forced the Kaiser's elite troops to retreat before them. So they had a heavy role and they were good at what they did. All right. They were talented at warfare. All right. So the war effort wasn't solely, upon these so-called Edomites because they were great. Jake pretty much won that war for them, but it was all in the spirit because it was the Lord. Our deliverance wasn't then. Our deliverance was going to be in that time of the third woe. Okay? So it was a prophecy, Jacob had to participate basically in order to keep the so-called white man above deep waters, which he would later find himself in right now. All right. Going on to 2019, the year to come. So anyway, African American troops. America was a racially segregated society, yet African Americans still served in the U.S. Armed Forces. When the United States declared war against Germany in April 1917, the U.S. War Department realized that they desperately needed more men to ensure victory. Yeah, desperate motherfuckers. The decision was made to allow African Americans to sign up. In some states, African Americans were forced to sign up and even fraudulently arrested as draft dodgers. Yeah, man, because there was a draft, but then they would basically, you nigger, you coon, you don't want to fight for the mother country, you're going to jail, which that's Esau is that's why the so-called white man is also known as the devil, because of his, or Diablos, which means deceiver. All right. Because he tells lies. All right. By the end of the World War I, African Americans served in cavalry, infantry, signal, medical engineer, and artillery units, as well as serving as chaplains, surveyors, truck drivers, chemists, and intelligence officers. Yeah, so when the so-called white man has need to preserve his kingdom, that's when we get involved, and apparently now we're just some bummites, with lack of intelligence, so don't be, brought low by the philosophies of this devil, man, because we're a great people, man, and these nations are gonna see that, and be in awe, when we're lifted up in our power, man, through Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, when we rule in the kingdom of heaven. All right. So this is gonna go on to I'll read it anyway. The 369th Infantry, the Harlem Hell Fighters, all right, became one of the most decorated units in World War I. Their unit was under the command of the French military. Eugene Bullard has a highly decorated African-American pilot in French Flying Corps. He was one of the only 2 black combat pilots in the First World War. Black soldiers in the British Army. Although little is known of black Britons in the British Army, we do have some evidence to show that black Britons served in World War One in the Army and Navy. All right. Hey, when that's the so-called white man. That's why the scripture says, never trust thine enemy. Iron rusteth, so does his wickedness. All right. When he needs you, that's when he's gonna come and find you and shake your hand. And then afterwards, when you have nothing left to take, he's gonna stab you in the back. All right. Now that's a picture of Walter Toll, former Tottenham Hotspur player. Walter Toll above is the most celebrated black British soldier who achieved the rank of lieutenant. All right, because it weren't easy to receive such decoration, because the so-called white man was just jealous and hurt. Black and mixed race soldiers in the British Army in World War One. These photos show several black and mixed race soldiers serving in the British Army in World War One, which there's no such thing as mixed race. You are what your father is. All right, so it was a bunch of Israelites, all right, from a light complexion to a dark complexion, and even unidentifiable, because the scriptures talk about confusion of faces. All right, so our people, you can't always identify them through their skin color. All right, it's a spiritual thing. It says Stephen Bourne's book Black Poppies provides valuable insight into the lives of black soldiers in the British forces. A detailed look into the life of Arthur Roberts, a black Brit who served in the 2nd Battalion Royal Scots Fusiliers during World War One, can be found in a book As Good as Any Man. Asian troops in World War One. As well as Africans and Caribbean soldiers, there were also Asian soldiers fighting in World War One. India sent over 1 million men to aid the war effort. All right, I'm just gonna skip down. This is Africans in German army. All right, now there's a difference between so-called Africans and the Negroes, okay? Because we were called as an effort to cause confusion by the so-called white man. We was all branched under the term African, but there's a difference between Israel, all right, the 12 tribes of Israel, and the true indigenous people of Africa, because we was told to flee from Israel into the interiors of the west coast of Africa by the Lord because of Roman persecution. Okay, so that's how we got to Africa. But then people started, we was then, enslaved and so forth. And that's why people today call themselves African, when the true Africans are the Hamites, all right? The sons of Ham, the sons of Ham, which was one of the sons of Noah. But we are Shemites, all right? Shemitic. So total different people, though we share the same skin color, all right? Africans in the German army. Little is known about how many Germans pre-World War One wore black population served in the armed forces. Yeah, because they don't want to. That's not something that they was concerned with teaching. Some Afro-German men did serve in World War One. There you go. There's a black German soldier. And some images which you brothers can look at if you go to this website that I've mentioned. All right. See the helmets. There you go, brothers, man. So Lord willing, this is edifying to you, brothers. It says, remember that World War One was not just fought in Europe. There was theatres of war in Africa and Asia, as well as at the sea. In East Africa, the Germans used Askari troops called Schutztrupp. I can't even pronounce it. They fought bravely and were never defeated, even after armistice. So amongst these men, you would have had the elect, man. All right, certain men which were chosen to survive the destruction. All right, to bring forth the brothers which you now see teaching. All right, these men would have been the grandparents or the great-grandparents of the brothers that are teaching and edifying, using the Urim and the Thummim, the internet, to edify brothers, to wake up brothers to the prophecies, man, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. So anyway, man, you brothers see all the images. Just to reiterate the point, going back to the article which I read off of Drudge Report, this is just the so-called white man perfecting his blessing, which is the sword, preparing himself for World War III. And the article went on, it did say Air Force scientists hope to have a laser that can defeat drones and missiles ready to put on an F-15 by summer 2019. So it's 2019, we're closer and closer to this third woe that I read earlier. So anyway, with that, I'm going to say shalom.